If you feel like there's no hope left right now, I want you to know something. Hope always exists, whether you feel it or not. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to find it again, even when everything feels impossible. Here's what I've learned from grief expert David Kessler. Your loss might be permanent, but your loss of hope, that's temporary. And I can hold hope for you until you're ready to reach for it again. So, if you're exhausted, if you're drowning in negativity, if you've been knocked down one too many times, this episode is for you. Let's talk about what to do when there seems to be no hope left. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get In You Are Driving, where I remind you that life is tough, but you're tougher. And even though much of my world feels black right now, I promise there is some pink left. This episode is actually very raw and it might be a little bit hard to get through because this is actually how I'm feeling right now about things in my life. I'm in a bit of a black hole. Um and I'm feeling like a lot of things are ideas and things that I don't believe in anymore. I'm feeling hopeless. But I wrote this out when I was writing because it's what I'm going through and I'm just feeling a lot of things just due to many things. So, yeah, I wanted to write to just help myself figure these things out. And what I really figured out that I needed is I need hope, I need encouragement, I need something. So let me start by saying this. If there's one thing I really feel deeply passionate about, it's encouragement. And my heart really has always ached to see people in pain, even since I was like a girl. I feel like I was just always very tuned with people's pain and their emotions, even if like I had just met the person. But if there's one thing I've learned through all of this introspection, so to speak, is that we're all suffering in our own way. So today, I want to be that person for you, the one that can like look you in the eye or you hear me in your ears and says, "I'm so sorry you're suffering, but I promise that it won't last forever." The very first segment we're going to get into is the reality of suffering. And you don't need me to tell you that life is hard because your suffering whispers that to you every day. Maybe right now your heart is broken. Perhaps you lost your parents. Maybe you've discovered you're infertile. Maybe you feel like you don't have a father figure in your life. You hate your job. You feel your life has no meaning. You have chronic illness. The list really goes on forever. But I just want to acknowledge that whatever you're carrying, it's heavy. And grief really shows up differently for all of us. And I've been thinking a lot about how mysterious grief is because, at least for me, it never arrives when the event happens. And I think this is quite common for a lot of us. It comes later, it's quiet, it can feel like this delayed echo. And maybe this happens because our brains and our bodies just need time to catch up with reality. And I think many times a lot of us just go into survival mode first, and we don't really see the side effects until much later, depending on what it was that happened, and then depending on how we individually process this and what it means to us. This always makes me think of a really great analogy my friend gave me. I remember a few years ago, I was telling her I felt like my grief wasn't important, and she stopped me and she said, "Maria, imagine you go to the emergency room and one person comes in with a visible compound fracture. The bone is actually sticking out and it's obviously very urgent. But then another person comes in saying they feel off after a car accident, but there aren't any visible injuries. Well, the person with the compound fracture gets immediate attention because you can actually see it. But the person with internal bleeding, that's just as deadly, right? But you can't see it. But that's probably why he's feeling off. And if it's not treated, it's going to kill him. The thing is, it's just going to take longer." And she said I was the latter person. And the analogy always really stuck out with me because I think that's exactly what emotional grief is like. It's the internal bleeding of the beings we are on our inside, our internal worlds are invisible, right? Like no one can see that you're grieving your father who might have died or who might not be present in your life, but that's still very real to you. So just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, slowly affecting everything in our lives and again, really in our internal worlds. So much of the suffering people are going through are like this. We can't see it, but it exists within the beings that we are. Grief also changes us. It shapes how we see the world. And if we don't treat it, I think there will be eventually consequences because you can only suppress something for so long. And what I've realized is that grief manifests in our own lives in ways we don't often expect. It sits with us, it changes us. I think it leaks into our relationships. Again, it really shapes how we see the world. And I'm going to keep on adding, and it shapes our internal world. But here's the thing about the quote that I mentioned in the beginning, David Kessler, was the one about loss being permanent, but the loss of hope being temporary. I remember when I first heard that, I was very impacted because I'd never really heard somebody define grief before, so it was just an interesting thing to hear nonetheless. Um, but it really impacted me because it was so heartbreakingly true, but also so beautiful to know that it was that hope still existed. Like I never thought about it like this. Like think about that for a moment. Even when something feels gone forever, hope has a way of returning. It just might be in a different form, right? Like, and that's what the quote like helped me understand. Like, your specific loss is permanent, right? Most likely permanent. I mean, depending on the situation, but most likely permanent. But the need that loss filled, or sorry, but the need that loss filled, yeah, that need can be met again. That desire can be met again. It's just going to look a little different. So, let me show you what I mean. For example, I like really giving specific examples because it helped me. So let's say your heart's broken, right? We all know that we can still love find again. We can still find love again. Maybe not in the same way, right? Not with the same person, but but it can still be found with the same depth, maybe even deeper, and it can be again a different kind of love. Another example, when you lose your parents, or you've lost a parent. Someone else may one day fill that space. Maybe they fill that space by being a mentor, maybe an aunt, maybe an older friend, someone who loves and guides you in their own way. But again, they're kind of like filling that role, and it can be just as meaningful. Another example, let's say you're facing infertility. Your story can still be full of love. It might take shape through adoption. Maybe it'll be mentorship. Maybe you want to work with kids just to be around them, but allowing you, like if you choose to be around them, right, you're still allowing yourself to have experiences and laughter and energy and be in spaces with children, even if they aren't biologically yours. Another example, let's say you didn't have a father figure in your life. Well, maybe one day someone may step into that role. Maybe it'll be your friend's dad. Maybe it's an uncle. Maybe you'll get married and you'll have the best father in law, right? Like, not all men are lost. Some still carry that protective, steady love that I think a lot of us are looking for, male and female. Another example, maybe you hate your job and you feel stuck. Remember, you're not trapped forever. You can explore new paths, you can apply for new opportunities, you can take very small steps towards what lights you up. Meaning, I really think is not something we find, but it's something we create. Um, Lastly, chronic illness. Maybe this is like, I don't want to compare suffering, but this I think is very heavy because your body's limiting you, but your spirit isn't. And hope may not come from getting better, but maybe from discovering small moments of peace, gratitude, and purpose within your pain. And sometimes the bravest thing isn't the cure, but maybe it's the endurance and the quiet decision that you're making to still show up for your life anyway. And what I really want to say about all this is that I don't want to make any of it seem like my examples are just this quick fix. It's just a way to help you see hope is never fully gone. I'm not saying just do this and everything will be okay, because I know that's not how it works and I know that's not real life. I just want you to know and understand that in their own way, things get better. And I do think things end up okay in the end. Um, but that doesn't mean that there's still not a lot of pain. And I understand that, but there is hope. And again, I think when we're ready to accept and believe that again, hope is always there waiting for us on the other side. So the question becomes, how do we actually live through this? How do we hold on to hope when everything feels hopeless? How do we stay in the driver's seat when life keeps knocking us off course? And that's where we're going to get into the practical, real steps now. So, these are my practical steps for surviving grief. And these are just personal insights. They are not theories. I am not a psychologist. This is all just me telling you what's worked in my life. I always put a disclaimer on all of this. I always tell you to think for yourself. But again, these are really things that have helped me through the thick of it. They are things that are helping me right now. And again, I just want to keep on saying, by no means is any of this easy, but it is what has helped me and again, what I'm doing right now. So I think the first thing is acknowledging your pain, but not becoming a victim. So acknowledge your pain and grief, but don't let yourself become a victim. And I know, as with almost everything in life, there's a really fine line here. So let me explain what I mean. I think it's very healthy and necessary to admit that whatever happened has left you feeling broken, heavy, pessimistic, unmotivated, bitter, resentful. Like, for instance, how my friend in that example was really trying to help me understand, like, Maria, what you feel is valid. You can't just pretend that this isn't affecting you. So, yeah, again, maybe you're going to become more negative, resentful, pessimistic. Maybe you don't want to get out of bed, all the things. That's valid. That's very valid. But again, fine line. Here's where the trap is. Don't fall into believing that your suffering is somehow special. As I've said before, everyone is carrying something. You are not the only one in pain. And when we only view the world through our lens and we're the only ones in pain, I think we risk losing a lot of really healthy perspective. We start to believe our pain is greater than others. Again, we slowly slip into that victim mindset, which quietly is removing our own responsibility, accountability, and agency. And I think that when we lose our agency, we lose our ability to drive our own car. So, is life unfair? I mean, absolutely. Only a maniac would tell you no. But I think it's unfair to all of us in different ways. So, tell the people who you know love you and want the best for you that you're struggling. Surround yourself with people who make you feel better and who love you. If you can, go to therapy. Be gentle with yourself. Do the small things that make you feel better. Acknowledge that you've been hurt, but again, balance that with accountability and responsibility, because what I want to remind you of is that you're in the driver's seat and you do get to decide what's next. So that brings me to step two. Step two is pour into things that make you feel better. This is going to look very different for everybody. And I mean this literally, even with the smallest things. So in seasons of grief, we often stop caring for ourselves altogether, right? We don't want to get dressed. We don't want to move our bodies. We don't want to eat well. We don't want to see people. We isolate. But the thing is, that only keeps us stuck longer. It's so bad for us. And like we know this, right? But it's kind of hard to fight it. So it is in these seasons that we need to take care of ourselves the most, even if you're showing up at a 40% capacity. I'll never forget how I heard this on a podcast in reference to she was talking about a breakup and how she said that we stop taking care of ourselves, especially physically, and that it's literally the worst thing you can do and it does not at all make you feel better. And it always just like really stuck with me that it's true when you're going through the worst moments in your life. Actually, the worst thing you can do is let all these things that make you feel better go. Like that's when you need it most. So I know that right now, and this has been for me, like the last thing I want to do is go to the gym and move and force myself to move. But it also is so healthy for us. It gives us a sense of satisfaction, the dopamine release. Like, I don't need to go into all that. Like, this is so important. And also, like, seeing your friends, my friends are saving my life right now, truly. So here's the truth. It's in grief, not outside of it, that we need these things the most. So even when it feels impossible, please try to keep your space clean, eat something nourishing, go for a walk, listen to music. If you have time, journal. And if you like that, cry, then cry again, and then cry again, and then please cry again a little bit later and breathe. And again, whatever little thing helps you, just do it and take small steps to take care of your mind and body because you really need that now more than ever. Just don't fully abandon yourselves. I don't expect you to just crush it at the gym and crush it in conversations with your friend during these times, but you really, really do need to be trying. All right, step three, take it one day at a time. As soon as you start thinking about the future and how big it is, and then you think about how your pain is going to be forever, you're never going to get over it, it's just so overwhelming. And I think it's one of the worst things that we can do, but unfortunately, we do it a lot. So just breathe. Um, don't go straight into solving mode either and future thinking because again, I think in the beginning it does help to just acknowledge that you feel awful, you're overwhelmed, you're anxious and you don't really want to do all that much. This is why I say just take it day by day, like talk yourself to get through the day. This is why I think this idea really matters. Like pain doesn't simply fade with time, even though people say like time heals all wounds. I've actually never liked that and I don't believe it. This is how I see it. Yes, it like softens the wounds and makes them feel farther away, but also if we never take time to process these wounds, then it waits for us in the next trigger with something that feels similar. Like thinking time will make it all go away is just so delusional to me. Again, like you really need to tackle it as best as you can now and try your best to just really feel it and be so uncomfortable with those feelings. And don't just wait and be passive because, yeah, it's just going to come trigger you later if all you try to do is suppress it. Also, notice your patterns, reflect on what you can learn and how this can make you stronger. I know you don't want to hear that, but none of us do, but it's just the truth. Like, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? How am I going through this? Not why is this happening? Because unfortunately, why is this happening in the beginning? It can be okay, but it can very quickly turn into victim mode. And then that's just a path you don't want to go down because we already discussed why. And again, the key, don't think about next month or next year. Just focus on making it through today, get through the next hour. Even if it has to be the next moment, that's all you have to do right now. Step four, I want you to pour into others. This is so good for you. I want you to spend time with people who love you. And I know this one might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out because I really think it's crucial. It may sound ironic, but helping, in my opinion, others is often the best medicine when we feel this hopeless. Because when we turn our attention outward, whether that's checking on a friend, helping a stranger, showing up in your community, getting involved in something, whatever it may be, our mind finds a small break from the loop of our own pain because we're doing something with someone else, right? Or for someone else. And I think it also reminds us that life is life is bigger than just our own suffering, right? Remember how I said earlier, lovingly, your suffering isn't special. And pouring into others gives us perspective. It shows us that we still have something to offer even when we feel empty. And sometimes I think that's exactly what we need to remember. I know that to me it is like when you when you sleep, in the sense that in your sleep, usually when you're so sad, it's the only time that you feel better. And I think that's because you don't have to consciously feel your pain. I think that when you help people, it has the same effect as you wanting to sleep all day when you're in so much pain. Like you're conscious, and this time it's better because you're actually conscious, but you're thinking about something else. And with this, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, just small moments, but make sure to still be showing up for other people and they can encourage you along the way whilst doing that. All right, step five. I want you to remember that neither good times nor bad times last forever. This is the one that's helped me stay really grounded. And I remember my mentor telling me this when I was having a really good time. I was kind of like saying, uh oh, like, when is the shoe going to drop? And she's like, Don't do that. Like, enjoy this really good time that you're in. But yeah, know that it'll get bad again at some point. Anyways, life moves in seasons. If everything were a good time all the time, we all know this, but it's annoying to hear. But we'd never grow, we'd never adapt, we'd never learn. Like, life in its strange and wise way is always trying to teach us something. So when things are good, I want you to soak them up. I want you to appreciate them. Like, I want you to hold on to those moments. But when they're hard, I want you to ask what this season may be teaching you personally. And again, when you're tempted to ask yourself, but why me? Why this? I get it. Like, we've all been there. And again, maybe take your day to be like, Meh, but go back to what this can teach me, because that question is what really changes everything. And I think it's what takes you from being a passenger and watching life happen to you, and it puts you back in the driver's seat because you're actively looking for meaning, for growth, for the lesson. And I think that's really powerful. Now, the 5 steps in we're going to sum them up again was: 1, acknowledge your pain, but don't become a victim. 2, pour into things that make you feel better. 3, take it one day at a time. 4, pour into others. And 5, neither good times nor bad times last forever. And now let's get into segment 3. All right, so segment 3, the power to bounce back. So, what is this ability? I forgot to say this, and I'm realizing that I didn't say it now. At the end of the last segment, I was talking about a really underrated skill in life and what I think that underrated skill is. So, the underrated skill, bum 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 bum, is the ability to bounce back. I think this is what truly defines us, and having the mindset and the psychological power that no matter what life throws at us, we can roll up our sleeves and push through it. So powerful. But let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy. When I think of the people though that I admire the most, they are the ones who possess this ability, this mindset. And again, I've realized that so much of this is psychological. It's not about being the strongest person in the room. It's not about never getting knocked down. It's about what you do after you hit the ground, right? When you hit rock bottom. Do you stay there? Or do you find a way to get back up? And I know that sounds simple. I know. But in the moment when you're down, when you're exhausted, when you've been hit again and again, like, nothing feels simple. But again, the reality is life is just going to test us, like whether we want it or not. Like, this is just a factual reality of life. And it's annoying. But what's more annoying, I was going to say, actually, it's more than annoying. It's, like I said, it's painful, it's frustrating, it's exhausting. But think about it. Who are we if we never get tested, right? Who are we? If we never face challenges, we don't grow. How do we discover what we're actually made of? How do we learn that we're stronger than we thought? Like, the tests aren't there to break us. I think they're there to show us what we're made of. I always think of the analogy that gold has to be put through fire, right? Like, think about that with yourself. Like, you have to be put through the fire to become this beautiful, ornate piece of gold. So I have to ask you, and I want you to really think about this: can you bounce back from the punches life throws, or will you stay down forever? Because ultimately, that's the choice. It really is. You can acknowledge your pain, you can feel it, you can grieve it, and you should. But at some point, you have to decide: am I going to let this define me, or am I going to use this to become stronger? And again, I'm not saying this to be harsh. I'm not trying to make any of this sound easy. I'm saying this because I care. And I think that we are capable of more than we realize, and that staying down isn't who we should be. It's just not who we're meant to be. And again, this podcast is all about staying in the driver's seat, even when life tries to knock you out of it, even when you get sidewiped, even when the road ahead looks impossible or blurry and there's just no light at the end of the tunnel. But I also want you to remember that you can pull over, you can take a break, you can cry, you can scream, you can sit there and feel like everything you need to feel, but eventually you have to put your hands back on the wheel, because no one's going to be able to drive your life for you. No one else can, only you. And that's not a burden, that's your power. And what I've learned about resilience personally is that it's not something you either have or you don't, it's something you build. It's a muscle you strengthen every single time you choose to get back up. And every time you face something hard and you don't give up, you're building that muscle. Every time you feel hopeless, but you keep going anyway, you're getting stronger, even if it doesn't feel like it. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel weak, broken, you feel like you can't do this, I need you to know you are stronger than you think. Now, I'm not going to lie and again say that this concept of bouncing back is easy. I'm not going to give you some motivational speech about how you just need to think positive and everything will be fine because I don't really think that's real. Bouncing back is hard and it's going to take a lot of courage and it's going to take time. It requires you to look at your pain and say, okay, this happened, this hurt me, but I'm not done. It's not the end of me. And it requires you to choose hope when, again, you feel like hope is gone. And that's not easy, but I think it's brave. And courageous optimism is one of the pillars of this podcast. And it's what keeps you in the driver's seat. And that brings me to my final point, which is truly a choice, perhaps the hardest, but also probably the most important one. And I'm talking about daring to believe and daring to believe that hope exists even when you can't see it and even when everyone around you says it doesn't exist. So, daring to believe, this is difficult, and I need you to understand why. A lot of the why is because pessimism is more present around us, and pessimism is seductive. People love it, right? Like, people actually believe you way more if you tell them about the negative experience they're going to have versus the positive one. It's insane. Like, we're all more prone to remember the bad than the good. It's just how our brains are wired. And it's easier in a way to just expect the worst, right? Because then you're never disappointed. You're a realist. And also we trust that again, when people tell us about things, that we trust their negative insights more than their positive ones. I mean, how many times have you heard someone proudly say, I'm not an optimist, I'm just a realist? I've always struggled with that statement though. Like, I really, really have. Like, I understand the need for realism. Like, I do. We can't walk around pretending everything is perfect when it's not. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm also not for toxic positivity, but I'll give you my take. If you fully, though, take away optimism and hope, what's left? Like, what's the reason then to keep going? Like at the end of the day, if hope doesn't exist, like, what is there? Just hardship, just pain, just suffering until we die? I personally can't accept that. Maria can't accept that. And I hope you can't either. Um, Here's the truth: hardship will come, it will knock you down. This is a guarantee. It's literally a promise. Like, it's a promise. But it's true, like, hope doesn't cease to exist. It's always there, it's just waiting. And while evil will never stop existing either, right? Two things can coexist in the world at the same time: hope and suffering, light and darkness. They're both real, both constant. The question is, which one are you going to focus on? Which one are you going to reach for when everything feels impossible? And I know the answer isn't always easy because some days reaching for hope is just going to be like the farthest and hardest thing in the world you can do. But what I need you to ask yourself is, can you still dare to believe that hope exists even when it feels so distant? Can you keep reaching for it? Can you dare to remember even when you don't feel it? Because I think it's in these moments that there's hope left. Because again, hope is always existing. It's quiet, but it's there. Just like there's always grief. Again, these things in life, this is how the world works. These dichotomous things coexist, and we can't just have one of them, unfortunately. This is the beauty and the irony of life. And I kind of think that even though it sounds awful, like that's just probably how it's supposed to be because life always moves forward like it has to. And maybe it has to be tough sometimes. Maybe it has to be full of grief at times. I'm going to link a really great Substack article that I read about this. It's titled And Life Goes On. And something that she says that I loved and just really stuck with me is, and life goes on is not an ending, it's the beginning of everything you haven't lived. That was one of the quotes. Again, such an amazing read. I just loved how she said, like, this is not an ending, it's just the beginning of everything you haven't lived. But, anyways, without that, without the struggles, without the pain, she was essentially saying we would stay stuck. We'd be forever ungrateful for the lessons life offered, for the people in our lives, for our health, for so much more. And that maybe that's the point. If we didn't face these struggles, we would get lost in our pain and never be able to rediscover hope. We would never get to live the more that does await us. Struggles are what teach us to rise, to reconnect with the good, to find our way back to hope, to maybe make decisions we would have not if the hardship had not come to improve ourselves. So, again, I'm asking you to make a choice, not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, but because it's the braver thing. Dare to believe that hope exists even when everyone around you may be drowning in negativity. Dare to believe that you can bounce back even when you've been knocked down more times than you can count. Dare to believe that you're in the driver's seat even when the road looks impossible, because you are and you always have been. And choosing to believe that and choosing to keep reaching for hope, I don't think it's naive. I think it's courageous. So, here's what this all comes down to: it's a choice. Every day, it's just a choice. I know you're tired. I know you've been knocked down. I know feels like there's no hope, but it does always exist whether you feel like it or not, which brings me back to the original quote that inspired so much of this episode by David Kessler. I can hold hope for you until you're ready to reach for it again. Your loss might be permanent, but your loss of hope, that's temporary, and I can hold on to it for you when you're ready. So, with all my heart, I hope you dare to keep reaching for it. I hope you dare to believe even when it all feels out of grasp, because hope is always waiting for you and it's worth reaching for. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing to get in the car today, even when it was hard. Remember, life is tough, but you're tougher. And even though the world might feel black right now, like me and my friends say, I promise there's still some pink. So keep driving. I'll see you soon. And I look forward to recording our next podcast episode. Mwah.